I released this SMP mod for Vampire the Masquerade's Bloodline, and I'd like to say a few words about it. Quite possibly a lot more than a few words. But the first thing I'd like to show is this Werewolf Blood vial, because in the original game it calls it a vial, so I tried to create a vial and this is the way it turned out. And the second thing I'd like to look at is this Jamie Sue rifle, because it says it features a zoom mode, but in the original game it never did have a zoom. And so what I've done is just take the buck rifle and put the Jamie Sue textures onto it. But the buck rifle in the original game has some problems with the model, so it has holes in it where faces and textures are missing and other issues. So I've tried to clean up and fix all of those, and this is the way that turned out. And we're ready to move on to the next subject. And this is very similar to the Werewolf Blood file in the original game. Gary asks you to find a film canister, and so I have taken the opportunity to create a film canister, and so that's the way that turned out, which kind of happy with that. And not sure what our next step will be, but I'll see you there. So this has to do with Hines and Anderson's conversation, and Hines calls Anderson.
Come in, Anderson. Yeah? Come check this out. I just saw
And then Anderson answers on his walkie-talkie. The reason I think this is important is because if you're going to do it this way, it's important to go down gangway A, and so just having that sound and conversation come from the correct places, I feel, is kind of important. And I also fixed up their cutscene here with the whale watching, and as much as I could, I fixed it. Some wild gesticulating and arm waving, probably a lot of shouting when Anderson gets there and there's no whales to be seen, and then he just heads back. So I thought that was kind of fun. And we'll head, I wasn't careful enough. We'll head for our next topic. And this doesn't have strictly to do with the original game, but it does have to do with the feature of the mod. And Mr. Zhang has these gun cabinets that are original, and I've created this function. Some things I've included, but they're not original, but I sort of like them. And you can use this command to turn them on, and it's in the README. It's documented in the README file. And normally you have to go outside and then come back in, or you have to do a map transition. And so I created him a little nicer, or what I think is a little nicer display. And the one of these functions that you might find particularly useful is if you're having trouble with the Romero zombie fight. Before you enter the cemetery, you can turn on the extras and then go do his fight, and it will be quite a bit easier. And then when you're done, if you'd like, you can turn them back off. And I haven't documented all of the changes that the extras do, because I think it might be fun for the player to find them for themselves and do a little experimenting to see what they are. So other than the zombie one that I think might be really useful for people, I'll just leave that for the player to decide. And I believe that's it for features, and I'd like to move on to some bugs. And this is a bug that's particularly problematic throughout the game, is that when you load different saves, like if the difference between a quick save and a player save and a map transition, it has trouble, with the map entities handling them. And in this case, if you break a window, it has trouble when you make a save and then reload that save. So that's what we'll do. We'll make our save and then reload that save. And there isn't any way to completely fix it, but I've done my best to smooth over it so it's not so obvious. Oh, I'd like to get out of here now. Thank you. This might be one of the more controversial changes, and it has to do with that barrier that I put up to prevent the player from jumping over and jumping over and getting to the ghoul behind there, because the barrier's there and there's a vampire that's in that room, but there's no door. It really doesn't matter, because with the barrier there, you'll never be able to see that vampire. And so to get to the blood doll, you have to figure out how to get this door open, and that shouldn't be a great problem, but I'm not going to show it. I'll leave that for the player. And there are a lot of things. Find somewhere quieter here. There are a lot of things that are interesting on the next level down, but I'm not going to cover any of those because I'd like the player to discover those on their own, although it will be pretty hard, and it'll take some serious effort, some serious thought to figure them out and find them if a player is interested in that kind of thing. But I will go down a couple of layers because there's something I want to show down there. So we've made it down a couple of levels, and I get to talk about one of my favorite things, which is the physics models, the physics of this game. And we can view the physics by turning on this command, and it puts a wireframe around the physics models. And so one of the problematic areas in this map especially is these burning barrels, and okay, there isn't one near here, so we'll ignore it for now. But what happens with this barrel if it doesn't have physics, which it didn't in the original game? The game just uses a bounding box and puts a square box around it to simulate physics, which is okay, except it's not ideal because you end up with geometry that doesn't fit the object. In this case, it's a round object with a square box around it. You run into these what look like invisible walls, and you bump into things that shouldn't be there. But more problematic than that is this object that I'm pointing at now has real physics, and if this barrel had the simulated physics as it does in the original, and you happen to walk up and collide with both of them, there's a chance you'll get stuck on the barrel. And everybody's experienced that in this game, where there's something on the floor and you walk over it and you get stuck, and then you get unstuck. And so that contributes a lot to the jank of this game, is these objects that don't have proper physics. So you're running into things that shouldn't be there, and you bump into them next to something else and you get stuck on them. And but for us, much more problematic is that on the simulated physics, as far as shooting goes, the square box looks like it's basically the size of the barrel, but as far as shooting goes, the physics goes infinitely high, and it goes through the ceiling, so you can't shoot over the top of the barrel. Even though I could jump on top of it and run across it, I can't shoot across it, which is particularly problematic in this room because these tables here didn't have physics in the original game, so you just had these large squares, and the squares, if the table was standing up, that wouldn't be so bad, but with the table laid over like this, you get this square that is like you running into things and you don't have any clue as to why. And now we can shoot into it, cause damage. But because this table is here, if we were to try to shoot this vampire back there, we wouldn't be able to shoot over that table because the physics, first of all, the physics would have been in our way to start with, but even if they weren't, even if it looked like you had a clear shot over the top of it, like this, you couldn't do that in the original game. And I believe that's all I want to say here. And actually, I believe that's all I want to say for today in total. And I'm not interested in conversing with that person. Oh, I should have left them alone. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. So thank you for watching.